again. So now we come to the Fool. Now we have individuated consciousness, and it's not necessarily a single person, but of course in practical matters, in reading tarot for people, because that's usually what we do. We don't usually read tarot for the sun or for our galaxy or anything like that. We do it for other people, or people we know, or beings we know, if it's not necessarily people, because I know some of us don't read just for people. So, but the Fool is individuated consciousness. It's where, okay, now we've taken that big loop that was folded over, that was unmanifest nothingness, and now that big loop has split into the multiplicity of existence. And now we define the individuated consciousness also by a loop, but now it's a smaller loop. It's continuous. It's never ending. It's a circle, or the O is a loop, the 0 is a loop, but the symbol is a circle. So now we've kind of defined a self somehow, and yet it's untainted. It's pure. It's innocent is the common keyword for the Fool. And that pure, innocent consciousness, it's pure mind, it's pure, I won't go so far as to say intellect, because intellect is kind of learned and discerned consciousness, but it's pure consciousness that is ready to absorb all the impressions that can come in, and so I think of the Fool like a baby. A baby is certainly fully conscious, probably more conscious than most of us are, more conscious, more aware. Their whole being is mind, but not mind in the thinking way, mind in the sense of the way it absorbs all of the sensory input and processes those things into their nervous system. And we actually learn right from birth how to actually filter those and diminish those impressions. Again, speaking of mystics and how mystics describe enlightenment and the enlightenment process, many mystics talk about being childlike, having the innocence of a child, and yet they are not talking about being childish. They're not talking about being immature. They're talking about being entering that clean slate, beginner's mind. In Zen is talked about a lot. Beginner's mind, that idea of experiencing something for the first time, as though you don't have any preconceptions. So that's the Fool, and the Fool I expressed there is through air, because the Fool is commonly expressed through air. The symbols common on the Fool card are the sun. So the sun's behind him. He's stepping out into the world. So you could see this as that sun that's behind the Fool. You could also see it, sometimes the Fool is either depicted with, in some more esoteric decks, with an egg, or is described in some texts about the Fool. He's kind of described as being like an egg, being like an egg that's almost ready to be cracked open. And so it's very funny. I think of this as soon as when I was experimenting with the designs, as soon as I did that shading on that particular circle, because there's only so many ways that you can shade one circle with two colors. I guess there's a bunch of ways, but in the simplest ways, there's only so many. So I experimented with a couple of things, and as soon as I did that, I thought, oh, yummy, breakfast, fried eggs. But it's like an egg, and so it's encompassing that innocence of being an egg, it's individuated. There's a shell around the egg, so it's protected, and yet it's totally vulnerable because the shell is so fragile, and it can break open at any moment. And when it does break open, when the fool is ready to emerge, when the chick is ready to emerge from the egg, the entire world opens up. So it's kind of like, this is why the Fool and the Magician are equated to the void and manifestation. They're related to each other. They're similar. It's like the individual's experience of that cracking, that split from nothingness to somethingness. So think of that. Think of the symbology of an egg when you look at this card, and the sun behind, and the dawn of a new day. All of that kind of symbology is in there, in such a simple image. Then next we have the Magician, and I hope I don't really need to explain that imagery too much, because of course with the Magician we have the four elements. Usually with more traditional depictions of the Magician, he's got all four elements, all four symbols of the elements on the table in front of him. So the cup, the wand, the sword, and the pentacle or the coin. And so he's ready. He's got all the tools at his disposal. He's got all the elements at his disposal. And he's usually holding a wand and pointing to the earth. And in a way, the Roman numeral that's on all of those cards sums that up. It's not just a 1, but it's also an I. It's the Magician stands there and states, I am. I exist. I am standing here. I'm participating in this world. And not only am I participating in this world, but I'm participating in this world with everything that I can, everything that's at my disposal. I'm participating with the fullness of my being, my earth, my water, my fire, and my air, my mind, my spirit, my action, my feelings, and my being and my resources. I'm taking all of that with me, and I'm going to use it in whatever ways are appropriate. And sometimes only a couple of tools are appropriate. Doesn't mean just because you have all the tools doesn't mean you have to use them all at every time. Kind of like a chef who's got this entire pantry of all these things, and yet they'll make this delicious, amazing dish using only 3 ingredients, or 2 ingredients, or 1 ingredient even, just depending on how it's prepared. So anyway, that's the Magician. It's fairly self-explanatory that we have the 4 elements around, and in the middle we have that voidness in the center, kind of linking it together, consciousness linking the 4 elements together.